How many of you were interested in being an entrepreneur? Oh wow, that's a good number. How many of you haven't even thought about it? Okay. And we got a couple people kind of in the middle, kind of interested but not sure about it. All right. I'm surprised to see that many. If I had asked this of a group maybe 5 years ago, nobody would have raised their hand that they wanted to be an entrepreneur. There's a real change in, and I was telling Anisha earlier, you know, when I started out, I started my companies, and every 2 or 3 years, our company, while we would either get bought or we'd merge because we were very rapidly growing technology companies, or we'd realize that we just couldn't make it. You get to a point after about 18 months or 2 years where you realize that this may not fly. We just can't make the right connections, and so you give up the company. But I would do that every 2 or 3 years, but the people I graduated from college from, they would get jobs with pharmaceutical companies and they'd be there for 15, 20 years. And so they looked at me as kind of the black cat, just constantly changing jobs. My mother once said to me, when am I going to come home to Pittsburgh and get a real job? And that's when I was like 35. Because I had been through like 2, 3 companies already. But now, you talk to anybody in the industry and they're lucky to hold on to their job for 5 years. Either the company gets merged and they lay off 1,500 employees, or the company changes direction and shuts down a department. And so, you know, there's no more security in working for a long time in a big institution as far as I'm concerned. So everybody's really joining me in my approach to my career. It's the way I look at it. So the next thing about an anatomy of an entrepreneur is really what kind of person are you? And this, I think, is something, if you're going to, you need to do this in your career at some point, and before you graduate, it's a very important time to do it anyway. You need to stop and think about what is your personality, not in just how you think about it, but how do other people see your personality. Boy, ask your friends or your parents what your personality is like, and you'll get a very different response often than what you think. But you have to think about what's your core personality and how do you do things in life. Are you an inventor? How many of you think you're an inventor? Where you get great ideas and you think you have maybe a couple ideas you can start a company around? How many of you think you're kind of the inventor type? Okay. If you're going to go into academics, do you need to be the inventor type? I mean, you know, how are you going to come up with your ideas for your research grants if you're not an inventor type? That's an important consideration. I didn't go into academics because I knew I'm not an inventor. I'm a MacGyver. I can take gadgets and fix them and make them work and come up with slightly better improvements, but I can't invent a new idea. That's just not the way I think. I know other people, like one of my partners, every time we turn around, we get a client that comes in and they say, we have a problem, we need to do something with this protein in order to make it more stable. And he not only comes up with the answer, but he'll come up with 5 ways to make it better and 3 more ways to create new products out of it. He just has this, and they're all good. And he has this great approach to being able to look horizontal. It's very frustrating sometimes when you're trying to get him working on one project and he's trying to go this way into 5 other things. But that's often an inventor. You need to think about that, whether you're the inventor type. How about a born leader? Are you the kind of person who people rally around, who you just naturally, not necessarily because you want to, but you end up leading the group? That's an important consideration. It depends on, you know, if you're going to be in academics, I don't know that you necessarily have to be a strong leader. If you intend to be the CEO of a billion-dollar corporation like Mark Zuckerberg, you need some charisma. You're going to be out there in front of people all the time, presenting your company, and knowing that you're struggling to make the next paycheck, but you have to go out in front of people and say, yeah, we're doing great, we can do this project, don't worry about it, we've never failed before. And you have to have the confidence that you're going to be able to do it. Not lying, but having the confidence that your team and you are going to be able to pull that out of the hat. Because the one thing that you don't have as an entrepreneur is money. You have everything else. You have great resources. You have great people. I've gotten people to work for me for nothing over and over again. Many times I would not take a paycheck home because I would buy my software programmers a new piece of software to get them to meet a deadline. And I'd do that because that's what incented them, was they wanted to play with new software. They didn't want a bonus. They wanted new software to play with. Right? You figure out what motivates them, and you get them to work for that, and money is not the object in getting a new venture going. Money is a destination. The third type of personality is, of course, the sales guy. Are you that kind of person who can go out and make that cold call, talk to anybody about anything, even if you don't understand it, but you have the confidence to go out there and talk to them about it? One of the things that we have a struggle with, as Nisha mentioned, is we have these MHR 890, the entrepreneurial program for graduates level at Fisher. If you're thinking of becoming an entrepreneur and you have another year at school here, I would really recommend you take that course. We actually we put together multidisciplinary teams from students from engineering. We even had a geography student, had a history PhD candidate. And we get live technologies from OSU, from Cleveland Clinic, not Cleveland Clinic, but Children's Hospital, and some other companies. We evaluate the technologies and we form a business around those companies, around those technologies. One of the biggest hurdles we have is come October when the students have to do what's called voice of the customer. You don't know if you have something people will buy until you go out and talk to potential buyers. And I can tell you, I've seen more engineering students mumble when they come to the meeting and I ask them, who did you call this week? And they go, couldn't get in touch with them, send them an email. And they're totally afraid of actually calling the person and talking to them. And that's the only way you can tell if they're interested in their intonation and the follow-on questions. You can't do that in an email. And if your personality is that you shy away from that kind of person-to-person contact, you have to think about that. Not only in being an entrepreneur, but in moving forward with your career. And finally, the one I put up there is the money man. And that is the person who is not afraid to go out and beg. Some people just have a knack for convincing people. Salesmen have a knack to convince people to buy something. Money people have a knack of getting people to put money up when they have no idea if they're ever going to get it back. And that's very important if you're going to do a new venture. Somebody asked me what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and I gave them a flip answer. I said, being an entrepreneur is like being unemployed permanently. You're always looking for your next buck. You're always looking for your next client. And you are. Because if your company doesn't grow, it dies. And you have to be on that growth curve in order to be successful. And the money person is really critical. So out of these four, I want to ask you to raise your hands, but think about what type you are. And which type do you think is going to be the better at being an entrepreneur? Who do you think is the real entrepreneur out of those four? Who would say the inventor is the real entrepreneur? Nobody. Okay. Who says the born leader is the real entrepreneur? All right. Who says the sales guy? More. And who says the money person? Okay. Well, I tell you, you're all wrong. It takes all four. You have to form a team if you're going to be an entrepreneur. You can't do a Mark Zuckerberg and just go out and step on everybody's toes and make you $1 billion. It takes a team. You have to get, if you're the inventor, you got to get the other guys to join you and trust in your idea and see the value of it. If you're the born leader, you got to find an invention. You got to find an idea. And to me, that's one thing about being an entrepreneur. I kind of put myself in the born leader category. Okay? I can't invent anything. I got to go find an idea, like Anisha's idea this week, which was really great. I'm willing to put in 6 months into developing a business plan around it and looking for the market and going out and raising $80,000. Okay? And I got my team of 5 students to go along with me, and now Anisha's on board, and Dr. Berger is interested. And so I think I've done a good job of telling everybody. I don't know if it's really going to work yet. I'm going on Anisha's word, Dr. Berger's word. But I've got this whole team together, and we're gung-ho. We're going to go after it. We're going to put out some more proposals to raise some more money and do some marketing studies and so on. And that's what I enjoy doing. When I'm in a group, somehow I always end up leading the group. I don't know why. I'm not an outgoing person. I'm not even an extrovert. I'm an introvert. But people tend to look at me to be the leader of the group, and I enjoy that. And if you're the salesperson, you got to have something to sell. So you better have a team, and you better have a good technical person to back you up, because when you sell it, they got to deliver it and make it work. All right, and especially when it's real high tech, that means that there's going to be a lot of money and time put into making it work. And finally, of course, the money man. Well, he can go out and raise his own money, and that's the kind of person we usually see going to jail these days, right? Because they don't have the other good people on their team, they think they can do it by themselves. And so who was that guy that actually made fake investment portfolios and built a pyramid, and he went to jail a couple years ago? But that's the problem with the money person, is that they often, you got the play of egos here. You know, the sales guy thinks he's the most important on the team, the money person thinks he is, and so on. And the inventor is usually the one who's very shy and quiet, and you have to encourage him to come out and be part of the team. But it takes a team to be an entrepreneur. It really does. And that's based on networking. That's based on building your relationships while you're here in school, getting to know everybody you can, finding those people that you like and you can trust as you go out into the business world. And I think that's true for everything, not just being an entrepreneur. And you do the same thing when you start your company. You need legal support, you need accounting support, you need patent attorneys. You got to find the people who you can put on your team. And believe me, I've had several startup companies where my lawyers worked for free, my accountants deferred their payments for 2 or 3 years until we got our companies up and running, because I found the right people and I asked them to help us out. So it's a very, very different picture, I think, than when you look at a movie like that, Social Entrepreneur. But this isn't the only way to do it, and that's something I kind of want to bring out and make clear to everybody. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you still have to go through the ideas of either a new venture or working with an early stage company. I joined a company once that got a large federal contract from the CIA, in fact, and then said, oh shit, we can't do this. So I joined the company and said, look, I'll defer my salary for 6 months. And only had like 5 people in the company. I will make this project work, and then you give me some equity in my back salary. So we did this. It was like a $5 million project. I pulled all the programmers together, reorganized the company, delivered the project, and when we delivered it, we took all the hardware and software to the CIA main office. They signed for it and took it in. We weren't even allowed inside the doors of the building. Okay? That was the CIA project. To this day, I still don't know what it does or what they're using it for. But the underlying factor of even starting an early company and turning it around, or a new venture, is that there's a high risk. Okay, there's 80% of the companies fail in the first year. And to me, I think it's because management failures, because they fail to put together the good management team when they're starting out. Very seldom is the actual IP. You're going to have low immediate income. Even if you try to draw some salary, believe me, it's very small. You can't justify being on a startup team and go to an investor and say, we need $1 million. By the way, we're going to take $200,000 salaries. You aren't going to get any money. All right? The magic number right in Columbus here is around $60,000 a year. If you go to a venture capital and you say, we got 2 people on the team working full-time would like to take $60,000 salaries, no benefits. And oh, by the way, you know, if there's tough months, we may not take those salaries. Then you'll probably get an investment. If you think you're going to get in there and earn big bucks up front, it just doesn't happen. Now, believe me, when you get that future potential, you can be selling that company in the matter of 2 or 3 years for $40, $50 million. And that's an area I want to talk about a little bit here. If you're going to be in the Midwest, I don't know how many of you are going to kind of stay here in the Midwest when you graduate? You're all going to go wherever the job leads you? Yeah. Okay.